are you doing? According to me, it is Sunday the 11th of October. We have got as far as Trinity 18. It's our Harvest Festival. So we are going to be thinking about all things harvesty when it comes to the reading and my thought. First though, the news. Right, first. Now we've had the diocesan conference. That is the sort of September-y meeting where all of the diocese gets together to have a chat. We've had a deanery chapter meeting, so that's me and all my sort of like fellow clerics. We've sat down and had a good old chinwag about what is going on. The schools have been open for about a month. Lockdown rules, I think we're getting to grips with those now, these local ones at least. So myself and Reverend Glenda, with all that information, have sat down and come up with a pattern of worship, fellowship, fun, up until the end of the year. We will continue to have private prayer in St. David's each Wednesday morning if you want it. We'll have a private prayer on Sunday mornings as well, often in St. David's, but beginning to move around the other two churches as well. So up in St. Paul's, Hurliquew, and in Llanillid as well. We'll try some experimental real services. We're going to go for the church hall, which is our biggest and safest place. We will have to follow all the rules, but we feel we could get maybe 30 people in there, and that is the space that we're going to try. We'll continue with the podcasts like this. We'll continue with online services. There will be real-time online services, so you log in at a particular time and you follow along with whoever is there, or podcast services where it'll be pre-recorded and you can just log in at any time you want and you can worship quietly there. Also, going to be trying out activities for Harvest and Remembrance and Christmas. So today, Harvest Sunday, we're going to gather for a socially distant time of fellowship in Llanillid, you know, the church in the Enchanted Forest on the edge of Pencoed. And what we're going to do then is for Remembrance, we're planning to open the church hall all day so you can come in your family bubble and do some remembrance activities and then leave with a memento, or you can leave your memento with us in our pop-up remembrance garden or in the church itself. The activities are going to be simple enough that you could do them at home and then bring them to us. You know, we can't gather together like in public worship or messy church where we all gather at once, and it's chaos. So what we're trying to do is open all day and let you come through slowly, but it's the same kind of thing. More as it happens with this, but that's sort of the big idea. Now, the opening of buildings for private prayer and otherwise is going to require volunteers who will be available when the churches are open to make sure that we stick by the rules. We had a good few people when we began to open just St. David's back in the summer for private prayer, but this pool has shrunk. Are you able to help us? Are you available sort of every week or two for a couple of hours? We've got risk assessments, we've got rules, very easy for you to understand what is going on. Are you available? Would you like to be the smiley face that people see when they turn up at church? Get in touch with myself or Reverend Glenda if you could. We can't do any of this without volunteers. Number 2, Zoom coffee. We are still gathered. I thought this would be like a couple of weeks and then people get fed up of it, but Zoom coffee is still on the menu. We've changed to Wednesdays because we were flitting between days, Wednesdays. We've gone for 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So this week it's the 14th at 4. We'll have a sing, we'll have a chat, we'll have a pray. Okay, it's all electronic, but it is lovely to just be together in a safe space. Reverend Glenda will give you the access codes for that this week. Contact her. And number 3, annual vestry meeting. So the meeting we normally have just after Easter, the end of year parish meetings. That all went sort of belly up because of COVID. We've got to do them now by the 31st of November. So I need reports off you to tell me how you thought 2019 went. So if you're in charge of the Mothers Union, or sort of open the book, or you're a church warden or a treasurer, just a little paragraph. How was 2019? Remember that? How was that for you? I'll put it all together and we'll collate it into a report. Now, we are allowed to meet in a COVID safe environment for these meetings. So I'm thinking November, we'll meet in the church hall in a safe space, and we'll have our annual vestry meetings. But I need to make the report first, so send us your stuff. We also need to make an electoral roll. We did have to make it new this year, but that's changed. But let's see if we can get it updated. So if you regard yourself as a regular attender, if you're going to be on our books, then go to the website, download the electoral roll sort of application form, or they're in the churches. Number 4, remember that this talk that I do, or Reverend Glenda does, will always be available to be distributed out to those who cannot, for whatever reason, access it. So get in contact with Judy. She's in the magazine, she's on the website. She will deliver out the written text of anything that we put on the YouTube, that we put online. So let people know so they can be part of things that are going on. Back to today. I caught hold of Nigel and I said, "Hey, Nigel, you wouldn't read for us this Harvest Festival, would you?" And he said, "I would be delighted." And so here is a delighted Nigel reading from Luke. Over to you, Nigel.
The reading from Luke chapter 17, verses 11 to 19. It happened as Jesus made his way to Jerusalem. He crossed over the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 men, all lepers, met him. They kept their distance, but raised their voices, calling out, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." Taking a good look at them, he said, "Go, show yourselves to the priests." They went, and while still on their way, became clean. One of them, when he realized that he was healed, turned around and came back, shouting his gratitude and glorifying God. He kneeled at Jesus' feet, so grateful. He couldn't thank him enough, and he was a Samaritan. Jesus said, "Were not 10 healed? Where are the 9? Can none be found to come back and give glory to God except this outsider?" Then he said to him, "Get up, on your way. Your faith has healed and saved you." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks for that, Nigel. Our harvest reading. Now, thought for this harvest. Now, that reading by Nigel, it's a funny old reading for Harvest Festival when you first come across it. But actually, if you stop and you rethink and you listen again, you think, actually, it's not such a funny choice. The Church in Wales is on the money in choosing that for us. It's a really good choice, and it's extra pertinent for the times that we are living through today. I always encourage people to read the Bible in a modern English version, to take the words at face value, but always try and understand the context and the peculiarities. So with regards to the context and the peculiarities of that reading, let's wander through what is being said and see if it's not actually really useful to ponder some of these things in the COVID autumn that we are in. Now today, if you have a malady, there's a good chance the NHS will be able to sort it out. Indeed, things that killed us 50 years ago are under control now, and slippery things like cancer are being chipped away at all the time by the clever people in hospitals and laboratories. But it wasn't always the way. And in Jesus' day, there were things you could catch that would mean you needed to be excluded from your community as they slowly got you. My mate, Dr. Phil, says that when he reads through the medical stuff in the Old Testament, he says it's remarkably logical and up to date in the way that it deals with things, which is hardly surprising if you believe that God actually wrote the thing, but there we are. There's page after page of what to do with skin lesions, things growing on your walls in your house, which I find dull, but Phil says are life-giving for the time and the people and the technology of days gone by. If you had leprosy, for example, which could mean one of a range of distinct skin diseases to us, then as it was contagious, you would need to live on the edge of your town or your village or your camp. You could see your loved ones and you could be near the community you loved, but you must not enter or embrace. Smells like lockdown, doesn't it? But we know that one day lockdown will pass, and in years to come, this phase of our lives will be sort of a bad memory and just remember it as a global wake-up call. But if you had leprosy in Jesus' day, though it was outside the city for you, where you would most likely gather with more of your kind for protection, and you'd just be left with the prospect of watching your family grow up without you as your disease progressed. Now, sometimes the disease would just go away and you would get better, but you couldn't just rejoin the community. Return was conditional on you going through the proper channels, and the proper channel was to visit the priest. The priest would examine you and he would declare you clean, and then you'd be allowed back. Now, that is a part of the role of a priest that I'm glad to say has been subcontracted to the NHS in our times. Not sorry to see that one gone. Now, in the reading today, then, Jesus plays it cool, does everything by the book. The lepers kept their distance from him, and he did from them. They called out because they were socially distancing, and he called back. No pleasantries here with him asking, "How long have you been like this?" Or, "Can you tell me how all this started?" Which he sometimes did. It's obvious what they want, and it's known where they need to go for their healing to be confirmed. So Jesus doesn't even say, "Be healed." Sends them off to the priest, and it's as they go that their healing comes. And there's another sermon there for another day in all that. But they ask, and Jesus delivers their lives back to them. Now, that scenario is a bit like if God clicked his fingers and COVID just disappeared, which he could do if he wanted, otherwise he's not God. You can therefore imagine in a very real way how much joy that would bring. Imagine if God clicked his fingers now, no more distance, free movement, squashed into church like sardines, and allowed to sing and share the peace and take communion. Joy, 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 joy. So for the lepers too, all 10 of them, they were off to the priest, yes, but that was just a formality. They were going home. It was a stop-off on their way back to their families. There would be no empty seats at any family table tonight. But here's the rub. One of them, the least likely as it would appear, a Samaritan, doesn't zoom off, but when he realizes he's healed, he turns back and he comes right up to Jesus and falls flat, face down at his feet in thanks. And then comes the lesson. Faith is needed to be a friend of God in this life, but also thanks goes a long way too. These lepers were as good as dead. As good as dead. They asked God for help, maybe through faith or just utter desperation. God delivered. But only 10% of them said, "Thank you." Now we are living in terrible times. But even in these times, there is always something to say thank you for. Always something to be thankful for. Now you might need to stop and think, You might need to change your mindset, but there is always something to be thankful for. Now, I've been a bit whingy of late, realising that all the festivals that I love, where we throw open the church doors for public worship, they just can't happen under the limitations of lockdown and the 2-metre rule, and they ain't going anywhere fast. Harvest needs to be rethought, remembrance needs to be redone, and Christmas will need to be shared in a new way. As I've already said, we'll be having a harvest outdoor social in Llanillid this afternoon to say thanks for the fact that the ground is still producing food and the shops are still stocked up. For remembrance and Christmas, we're going to open up the church hall for a day where you can come through in your family bubbles and do some activities. We can't gather under one roof, but we can gather slowly over a day, or outdoors under a tent, or around a brazier for maybe some carol singing. We can celebrate the birth of Jesus, but it'll have to be different this year. But we can still do it. We cannot do it like we have in the past, but give thanks that there is still things we can do to mark the passing of the seasons and the festivals that punctuate each year of our life. God's not gone anywhere. He's still out and about. He's still in charge, though it may not feel like it sometimes. We obviously need to learn something, hence the challenge that we have been given. But in all this, there is always something to be thankful for. It may not be as obvious as being cured of leprosy, but there's always something to be thankful for. Always. Happy harvest, everybody. Happy harvest. The questions for today, 4 as ever. Here we go. See what you make of these. Number 1. Have you ever had an illness that the NHS just fixed? Have you had an illness and you went along to the hospital or the doctor and they knew what to do and they fixed it? Number 2. With that in mind, what do you think it was like to be a leper in Jesus' day? What do you think it was like to have an incurable skin disease in Jesus' day? Number 3. What do you think it was like to have been one of the 10 who was instantly healed? Incurable skin disease 1 minute, healed the next. What do you think it was like to have been one of the 10 who was instantly healed by Jesus? And number 4, what do you have to say thank you for, despite all this COVID stuff that's going on? What can you say thank you for to God, despite all this COVID stuff that's going on? Song for the day. I often sort of introduce you to sort of newer stuff, just to prove that there are good old-fashioned belters, and some of the new songs are still, good as well. But it's Harvest Festival, and all harvest festivals have to include a particular hymn. We plough the fields and scatter. It's not harvest unless we have this. So turn up the volume and sing along to We Plough the Fields and Scatter. I'll stick it on the end of this, and also I'll put it in with the text of this video. Last thing then, let's pray together. And together, close your eyes. Dear God, thank you that things like leprosy that would have been incurable many years ago, they can now be fixed. And thank you that despite all that is going on, there is always, always, always something to be thankful for. Amen. Right, team, you've seen the plan for the next couple of months. It might change. It probably is going to change. So keep an eye on our website, on our Facebook page, for things as they happen. See you a bit later in Llanillid, if you're watching this on Sunday morning. If you're watching it later, you know what, it's great. And yeah, zoom in this week on Wednesday. And who knows, in the future, I may see you not on the screen, but in person for a real service. Oh, the days, the days. Keep safe, everybody.